Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here at Trunkful Reads, and in this video, we're going to be going over my favorite reads or listens in the genre of philosophy that I read or listened to in the year 2018. And I only read about a dozen books or so on philosophy or philosophical kind of topics, things like that, in 2018, which is actually lower than I used to read. In college, I used to read a lot more philosophy or philosophy-related works. But like I said, I was only about a dozen in 2018. I almost kind of forced it, kind of in the second half of the year, because I kind of wanted to start reading more philosophy again. But for the most part, I just wasn't finding, I guess, anything what I was looking for. I have like three front runners here, because I'm excluding some of like the primary source material, like Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, because it's almost kind of a different category with the primary sources than kind of books on philosophy, if you know what I'm saying, I suppose. But like I said, there's only like three that kind of stood out at all, and the other ones were just kind of all meh, to be honest. So there's not even any honorable mentions in this video. So if you have any recommendations on philosophy or philosophy-related books or covering philosophical topics, stuff like that, definitely leave some comments down below. I'd be glad to hear any recommendations that you have on philosophy. So yeah, like I said, let's just get started. The first one is an audiobook I listened to, and it's A Little History of Philosophy by Nigel Warburton. I picked this up on Audible when they had like, I think it was just kind of like a sale on like just like some random books and stuff. I don't know if it was a 2-for-1 or it was just like a really cheap price or something. But I do remember listening to it, and actually I enjoyed it because it deals with philosophy in a chronological order, and what it does is it covers from basically the ancient Greeks and Western philosophy down to about if I remember, the middle of the 20th century, with like the existentialists with like Sartre, for example. I do think sometimes the chronological order is better, especially for some people that are new to philosophy, so you can almost see the development of different ideas and concepts over time, kind of the abandonment of some ideas and the creation of new ones, sort of over time, rather than just a purely thematic approach, which a lot of books do. They deal more like ethics in like a couple chapters, then maybe like epistemology and then some others and logic and stuff. So I think sometimes that can be overwhelming, especially when compared to just kind of almost like a historical chronological narrative approach. That does have its own weaknesses as well. But like I said, it deals from the ancient Greeks down to the fairly modern era, so I thought that was pretty cool. And each chapter deals with, I think they were all about 15 minutes or so on that particular philosopher, given sort of a short little profile of who they were and stuff, and then what their big kind of concept and ideas and thoughts and the questions they asked or answered. And I just thought that was actually pretty cool. There's nothing like super spectacular about it, because there's not enough breadth or depth, depth for each individual character to kind of make everything like crystal clear, if that makes sense. Like when you're dealing with the continental philosophy of like Hegel, for example, 20 minutes is not enough time to go over phenomenology. You could have literally whole courses on that, and all of it's just like over my head. So yeah, 20 minutes is probably not going to cut it with some of them. But like I said, if you're just looking to get into philosophy, just kind of see what it's all about, what it is, this would definitely be a great place to start, because like I said, it's chronological, but just like kind of almost, I don't want to say sound bites, but just kind of little bite-sized pieces of tons of different philosophers, so you can kind of see just kind of the gist and listen to the gist of what they were trying to get at in their own philosophical lives. Alright, so there's that one. The second one is one of these very short introductions, as you can see here. I read PreSocratic Philosophy, and this one was by Catherine Osborne, and I thought this one was actually really, really good on the topic of pre-Socratic philosophy, and just, through the title Pre-Socratics, those are the philosophers who either lived during or before the time period that Socrates became famous in the second half of the 5th century BCE. The problem with the Pre-Socratics is we don't have any of their writings in really any large extent. At most, sometimes we have like a few paragraphs kind of together, but lots of times it's either just like little fragments of like a paragraph or a couple sentences, things like that, and sometimes it's not even that, it's just like quotes of like a sentence or two from other writers. Like for example, Aristotle has lots of quotes from these pre-Socratic philosophers in his writings, or just kind of mentioning their kind of concepts and philosophies even without really directly quoting them. So that makes it difficult to study the Pre-Socratics, even though they were the first true philosophers in the Western, the Western mind, in the West, I guess, in Western philosophy. So because of that fragmentation of the source material, a lot of their stuff is very vague and abstract. They're probably already vague and abstract to begin with, but then when you slice away 95% of what they wrote or thought about, you're left with some very questionable stuff. But I think the author did a really good job dealing with a lot of the philosophers. Particular, from what I remember, she does a really great job dealing with Heraclitus, who's kind of notorious for his kind of just vague aphorisms and calling it philosophy, which it was. She does a really good job with that. If you can get past the first chapter on Empedocles, it's kind of convoluted. But other than that, I think the rest of the book does a really good job kind of summing up what the Pre-Socratics were all about, especially when it comes to metaphysics, like kind of what is stuff, you know what I mean? And dealing with, especially with the arche, like kind of the prime material of the universe. For example, Thales, who's usually considered the father of Western philosophy, he believed the arche was water. You kind of go over why he might have thought that and all this and that. So I thought that was kind of cool, and it does deal with the bigger picture of not what they actually thought. It's not about, Thales thought it was water per se. It's the fact that we're actually asking the question, what is the nature of things and what causes things to exist, stuff like that, more than the actual answer itself. Like I said, Catherine Osborne does a really great job with this very short introduction on the Pre-Socratics. So there's that one. And then lastly, I listened to one of the great courses, and it was an introduction to Greek philosophy, and this one is by David Ruchnick. I do enjoy the great courses. I'm trying to get back into listening to one course a month from now on. There's kind of a period, like most of last year, where I didn't really listen to any. But I've done good so far. In January and February of this year, I listened to one in each of those 2 months. But David Ruchnick does a really good job teaching, obviously, Greek philosophy in kind of a nice basic way. He's broke the lecture into 3 parts. The first third is the Pre-Socratics again. The second third is on Plato, and the third section is on Aristotle. He does a really good job with the Pre-Socratics. He does a really good job with Aristotle, but he does a fantastic job when dealing with Plato in the dialogues. I felt that was definitely the strongest third of the course, I guess you'd say. Yeah. And he does a really good job kind of explaining what Plato and Aristotle were all about. Obviously, 8 lectures to each of those is not enough to delve into all the primary source material. He does deal a little bit, like with quotes and obviously direct readings from the actual primary source text that Plato and Aristotle wrote. But obviously, like Aristotle, for example, has 30 or 40 different works that he wrote on that has come down to us. Same thing with Plato. You just can't cover all the dialogues, but what he does cover, he does a really good job with. And like I said, I just think he did an exceptional job with Plato and the dialectic method. Is that the right term? Yeah. But anyways, like I was saying, I think he just did a fantastic job dealing with Plato, and it's just really refreshing hearing sort of all these ideas that are kind of really abstract and stuff into this nice crystal clear way, so you understand exactly what he was getting at, and it gives you kind of more confidence when you go back and read those sections of the primary source material. When you go back and read parts of the Republic, you actually understand what he was trying to get at and what the actual major points were. So overall, just highly recommend Introduction to Greek Philosophy. Obviously it only covers up to Aristotle, so it's really, like I said, just Greek philosophy. So and he doesn't teach other classes on later philosophy and stuff, which is a shame. But like I said, if you're looking into Greek philosophy or interested in that topic, that is a spectacular way to start. So there you guys have it. Those are my 3 favorite philosophy works that I either read or listened to in the year 2018. If you have any good recommendations on philosophy, definitely leave some comments down below. And always remember, whatever you end up reading, read victoriously.